Okay, so you're leading organizational change and it's extremely tricky. So between managing the resistance that the team is giving you, you're trying to increase buy-in, but you're also trying to support your own mental health through a very tricky process that needs you to be up and both down. But because you're also managing transitions and change in your own personal life, it does feel like it gets too much. Welcome to the Unlearners podcast, and on today's conversation, we are doing a take two or a part two to our Q&A for organizational change and transitions. So if you're a leader who is leading organizational change, this episode is for you because we've put together some of our top questions from our listeners, from our clients at the Unlearners that will help you really think about what's the best way that I can support my team, support myself, as we go through a very sticky, tricky, icky change in our organization. And this episode, like I mentioned, follows on from the very first part. So if you haven't listened to the first episode where we talk about organizational change, I strongly encourage that you go back in the archives and you find that Q&A episode, because that's when we did a good 3 questions that have come from our listeners, come from the individuals that we serve and the organizations that we serve as the Unlearners, and are really great answers are given there that are practical, that will support you as you start to think about how do we ramp up our transformation efforts right now to build that sense of psychological safety, but also to get our teams excited about change. Because believe it or not, with change being a constant, there is the possibility that your people could actually get really excited about what the future holds. So let's talk today about how to encourage organizational changes that feel fun, but also feel easy. Welcome to the Unlearners podcast. The Unlearners. Learn, change, the unlearn. I think if you take one courageous step at a time, it's going to be such the Unlearn, change, grow. Okay, so today's conversation is going to be one where we add a few questions. What we've done is, because during the last episode, and you probably remember when we did the last episode, if you listened to it, and once again, if you didn't, I strongly encourage that you go back and you do that, because we were able to get through 3 questions from our audiences around how to navigate organizational changes, but also how to lead them, more especially because it was targeted towards individuals who are either managers or leaders within their organizations and have noticed just how challenging it can be to support a team, especially when you don't necessarily have all of the information. One of the insights we consistently get from managers, especially middle management that we support a lot of the time, because we do a lot of work with this group in different organizations, is how are we supposed to keep everyone calm, to keep everyone feeling centered when we feel like we don't have all of the necessary information either. We feel like we are having a push and pull situation between ourselves and senior leadership, for example, or even a leadership that's just above us, or maybe, to use that word, which I don't quite like, who we report to, rather, our line managers within our organization. So there is that big conversation around what's the best way to do that, especially when you feel like the systemic parts of everything, the procedural part of it, the systems haven't been built up for agility. It becomes really challenging to be someone who is supporting a team when it feels like the systems within your company are, yes, happening sometimes, but they're taking really long. Things like growing our team so everyone feels a lot less anxious, a lot less overwhelmed. Those are things that can take a lot of time. But often what we find is that's one of the things that most of us are crying out for. It's all of those procedural, human capital related issues. But the conversation we're going to have today is, how do you, in the interim, while the processes are being sorted out, how do you keep everyone just feeling like it's okay? Feeling safe, feeling calm, feeling centered, feeling purposeful, but also excited about the possibilities of change. It's really interesting because our organization does a lot of really great research around how individuals within teams have the capacity, when they feel a sense of agency around change, to really revolutionize how organizations function, the products we develop, the systems, or even how we revolutionize our systems and how customer experience takes a new form in an organization. Sometimes just starts with one person. And that's why as a team, we've developed an exciting new offering and intervention for our clients that we have positioned with certain clients that we think will really benefit from it. But if you're interested, please definitely do reach out to the team. It's called The Change Agent. And basically what it's about, it's this entire program that we've designed that includes facilitation of ongoing conversations among the team. It's a strategic conversation, but also it's made up of one-on-one coaching for middle managers specifically. We do offer it to senior leadership as well, but it's coaching that is neuro-focused and talks about how we can support each and every individual leader who is leading change agents. How do they need to think? What is the mentality and understanding that they need to have? But also, what's the support that they need? Because one of the things we've been finding is that these individuals are extremely overwhelmed. And the more pressure we put on them, we don't really help, because we don't necessarily accompany this pressure with coaching. We don't accompany this pressure with mental stability and a framework that helps them to think clearly, to be aligned, to be purpose-driven, but also to be change agents themselves. And we say that the more we can dedicate, the more resources we can provide to this particular key group within our organizations, then we will start to see change becomes something that we can leverage, an almost wave that we can ride on and get all of these beautiful results like higher team morale. We can start to see lower staff turnover. We can start to see so many exciting things that result in these beautiful objectives that we set out to do when we set up our strategic outcomes. So the change agent then is just something that I'm happy for you to chat to our team about. If you feel like you're in a position where you really want to get everyone excited, but you also want to offer this support to your middle managers, it is a really exciting opportunity for us to serve you, but also for you to really get those beautiful results. Because if your team can be well positioned to manage change, and each and every one, you'll see one of the questions we got today was really interesting and will help to answer this question. But if you can position each and every person as a change agent, it's phenomenal what you can achieve. Because here's what happens a lot of the time is that if one individual within a team, and it only takes one, right, both to be a change agent, but also to be an anti-change agent or an anti-change agent, just one person could spread a conversation, a negativity, a resistance towards change that could topple so many different things within the organization, and an entire business unit could find itself really just against where the organization intends to go. And it works in the exact same way with change agency. It just takes one person. Imagine each and every one of your leaders, your middle managers, being these powerful change agents that are purpose-driven. How much you can achieve as an organization. So yeah, that was my little schlep around the change agent offering and intervention. Please do reach out if you feel like it's right for your team. We would be honored to support you, to get your people excited about change. And this almost precedes the conversation where you start to bring in maybe someone who might be a consultant to do much deeper work and work that lasts over a good few years, maybe to manage the organizational change you have. But you want to just create this fertile ground where the humanness of change has been dealt with, because sometimes you find that there are things bubbling under the surface that the team just needs to have conversations about. They need to just be facilitated. So you've got this fertile ground on which to build from, on which to then create something new and to transform as an organization. So I will stop right there, because now this is turning into like an entirely big conversation. But I hope just in talking about that, you've started to realize where some of your gaps are, but also what you can do. If that was not enough for you, I've got some really great resources that you can also use if you're thinking about your change and transformation journey as an organization and how you could support your people, regardless of where you are in your organization at the moment. The very first one is our 5-question quiz. This is one of our most exciting free offerings that we've got to just support. We can't necessarily be everywhere all the time, sadly, and although we want to work with all the organizations, all the ones possible, but we don't get to for various reasons. So this particular quiz was developed just to give every leader who's going, right now, I need help right now. What can I do where I am with what I have, with the context that my team is in right now? And so that's why the How to Lead Change Now quiz was developed. All you do is you answer 5 key questions, and then we give you a response as to what it is you can do right now in your context, in your situation, in your organization that will move the needle within your team. It might be something like helping the team to realign to the organization's values. It might be something like having conversations, building forums. Whatever it is, the input you give us will help us to understand, based on the models we use as an organization, exactly what your team needs right now. Because sometimes it's not about having an entire framework. It's just about knowing, what can I do with what I have where I am right now. That is simple, it's bite-sized, so we give you a report, and then I send you a video as well of myself explaining it. Because I know sometimes people will say, Zanele, I want to just see your face explaining it to me. So I'm happy to do that as well. That's also something that you get. The second resource that we have for you is our 2 steps to change cheat sheet. And this is also something that you can download that gives you just a quick hit for what to do right now. And it's just made up of 2 steps. This one is specifically around psychological safety. If you're noticing that the team is not feeling too safe right now where they are, there are signs of maybe, I won't call it rebellion, but this resistance. Everyone just feels threatened. They're not feeling too safe. There's a sense of anxiety and fear. This is a really great resource to help you think about, how do we help everyone to center themselves in the vision that the organization has for our future right now. It's a second one. And then the third thing that you can do as well, if you think that you could really benefit from a community of other leaders of change, we have an exclusive by invitation only mastermind. It's called the Navigating Transitions Mastermind, and it is a close-knit, intimate group of change leaders who have a sense of mastery in their spaces because they have invested in change, they lead change in their organizations, and they want to sit with other well-positioned individuals who are going through the same types of things, both personally and in their organizations as well. And we have extensive conversations here. There is support, there's all sorts of things, but this is more of an extensive program. If you really feel like you extremely benefit from something like this, please do reach out. It is by invitation only, but you can still apply to be a part of it. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Those are the resources you can use if you really want to support yourself. Now, let's get into the questions that we're going to answer today as we finish off our first Q&A. This is now part 2 to the part 1 that we had in the last Q&A episode. So one of the questions we didn't answer, and this was question number 3, and will be question number 1 for today's conversation, is whose mandate is it to manage change? I love
Be, do, have. Not have, do, be. Most of us think that we have to have the things we need so that we can do the things that the ideal version of ourselves does, and then we'll be that person. But if you've ever been on a transformation or change journey, you will know that you actually have to embody that person. Ask yourself, what does that person do? Who are they? And when you can embody that person, then you will do what that person does and have what that person has. Good news is that the Unlearning Experience, our 3-day transformation retreat, is designed for exactly that. If you know that you're dreaming about a version of yourself that's going to take the next level of performance, then this is an opportunity for you to unleash that version of yourself by taking stock of what might have been an amazing year, or also maybe not so much, and then planning strategically, intentionally, in a beautiful environment for the next year in a way that will allow you to be, then do, and then have. I'll see you at the unlearning experience.
This question because it comes up consistently for me. And the interesting thing is that this question doesn't just come up from maybe senior leadership. This question comes up from a range of different places in the organization, and sometimes even at the board level, which I find quite interesting. But here's my answer to this question, and you can answer this question in so many different ways, but my answer to this question is always that it's everyone's responsibility. Earlier on, we spoke about the initiative or the intervention that our team has called the change agent. And one of the reasons we developed it is to answer this question, that it's everyone's prerogative to manage and navigate and champion change in an organization. Now, having said that, yes, you might have a change lead, you might have a transformation lead, you may even have an entire function that is dedicated to navigating a particular transition. You may even have selected change champions in the company, or you might even have a consultant that has come in to support and help you navigate the entire change. And that consultant may have even come in with their entire team that is helping you do that. However, and this is extremely important, and if you have something like this set up in your company, I think that this is something you need to lean into. As much as you may have any one of those things, it is still, and hear me when I say this, it is still each and every person's responsibility to manage change in your organization. Here's why. Number one is because it's not just the change champion that is facing change. Each and every function within an organization is feeling the effects of an organizational change. Not just the organizational change, but also the changes that have led to it. We're talking changes in the economy. We are talking changes in the landscape of your industry. Every single person in your company is feeding the results of that change. And so it's useless for people to go, oh, it's not my job to think about it. Who do you think is going to think about it if you don't? If we don't build around the change for resiliency, for anti-fragility, you are going to get left behind. And so each and every person almost needs to take change as a responsibility into how they manage each and everything within the business, regardless of where they are, whether they are client-facing individuals or even if they are individuals who serve the business internally. I think that this is a really important one, and if we can get this one right, then the job of the change function, the job of the change consultant, the job of the transition lead becomes that much easier because each and every person has taken a sense of agency around considering and being aware of change, but then planning for it and working with it. That's why that one is so important, and we can't overthink it. So that's number one, is because everyone's affected by change. But then number two is that everyone has a role to play. And here's what I mean by that. Everyone has a role to play in the sense that this is one of the things we spoke about earlier on in the episode. If one person chooses to resist a change, for example, maybe we've just got something simple like a new leader coming into the CMO or Chief Marketing Officer position. If one person chooses to resist that particular change, that person could turn the entire marketing function on its head, just because that person has chosen to resist that change. And that's why it's not enough to just have the change consultant say, okay, maybe let's have a coaching conversation with that person. It's not enough, because if that person then maybe transforms, they've already influenced a range of other people around them. And so each and every person needs to take ownership. And I'll keep coming back to this because I think it's honestly a very valuable very valuable opportunity for organizations to take advantage of is our intervention, the change agent, that comes in both a keynote, a workshop, but we also do an entire program that's coupled with coaching, like I mentioned. But this is what it does, is it awakens the sense of agency and accountability in each and every person in your organization, more especially the people that you feel maybe could play the role of change champions going forward. What does that look like for them? How do they get the sufficient support and grounding that helps them to do that? But also the people who maybe not so much are not so keen on the change. How do you transform those individuals into change agents who can then re-influence everyone else around them? Because what you find is that the people who are negatively influencing people are actually very influential people. And if we can really think about how do we transform those people to be passionate again about what it means to change in this organization, they could really play a pivotal role as actual change champions in the organization. Now, that was a very long one, but it's definitely one of my favorite questions to speak to, because I think when we see the potential there, it is phenomenal. It's phenomenal what we've seen happen in some of the organizations we've worked with when each and every person comes on board, but as many people as is possible, because sometimes you can't get everyone on board. It's really, really tricky because some of us feel misaligned. And when the organization changes, some people might go, you know what, I've noticed that it's not a good fit for me. It doesn't align with where I see myself going in terms of my career goals. And that's fine, because the process really helps us to see if there's misalignment with some people. And if there is, then they leave the team, and that's fine. But we get to move ahead with individuals who have seen a beautiful golden connection between our company vision and their personal vision. So that's a really beautiful thing in my eyes. Okay, second question we're going to do, which is the last question we're going to speak to. And this one is really interesting. It reads, how do individual leaders manage their mental health? Because explaining an organizational change to the team is draining. I love the honesty. I think when these questions are as honest as possible, they really help us to understand what so many leaders are feeling that are listening to this podcast, but also are being served by our work. I want to start by just validating that part around being draining. Change in any capacity, both personally and professionally, will always be draining. There will always be, like we mentioned in one of our earlier episodes, there will always be a sense of loss around change. And this was actually the Q&A episode number 1, the one that explained the first few questions. And one of the questions was, why is the team resisting change? Something along those lines. So there will always be a sense of loss around change. And that's where the draining comes from mainly. But the draining also comes from not being accustomed to. And here's why I say that. Because when something has become a habit, it means we have built a shortcut in our brains that helps us to execute that thing in less time, but to waste as little energy as is possible. We have created the neural pathways in our brains that mean there's a lot less sweat equity. We are employing a lot less of our prefrontal cortex, which is our logical decision-making, analytical part of our brains. We're doing a lot less of that. So it becomes easy. And as a result of that, there's a lot less drainage that happens in the system. And that's a really good thing. And here's why. Is because when we can build into our cultures a sense of knowing what to do during change and then employing those strategies over and over again, guess what happens? We then build a shortcut in our brains as to what to do with change. Because the biggest problem that I've found, or we found as a team, is that the default for so many of us as individuals, but also as organizations, is that we've just been taught to survive during change. We've never been taught how to actually do change. How do we actually navigate a transition in a way that allows us to sufficiently let go of what we've lost and then grab hold fully to what we need to grab hold of? All we've done, or all we've been taught to do, is just manage, just get through it, just do it, just get over it, just jump into the next thing. And then we find ourselves just going in these not so great circles because we haven't been taught what to do. But when we employ a strategy, a toolkit of some sort, and we employ it consistently, with that beautiful consistency, then it becomes that much easier. And so I will validate that aspect of draining, but I want you to just understand where it comes from when we say change is draining. It's only draining, well, not only, but it's mainly draining because of those two key factors. However, yes, there is definitely, regardless of how many times you've done it, that drainage can still come in and it does still feel very overwhelming. Now, let's go back to the answer for the question. How do individual leaders manage their mental health? Because explaining an organizational change to the team is draining. One of the ways that you can manage your mental health is think about how you do change. Because one of the best ways to teach other people is to model what it means to change. So do you, as an organizational leader, manager, have a strategy for managing change that feels authentic to you? That's the first thing, because when you execute a model, other people start to see through your modeling what it is that works during an organizational change that feels good. That's the first thing. And then the other thing you can think about is what are the gaps you have that are maybe working against your mental health? What are some of the things that you are feeling that could direct you towards where you need to ramp up your efforts? Are you feeling like you're feeling a lot more tired since you are leading an organizational changes? Are you feeling really drained? What are some of the physical signs that you might be picking up? And follow those signs, follow those emotions to have them then lead you to go, oh, maybe I just need to take a walk so I can clear my head. Maybe every 2 hours during my workday, just take my shoes off and walk on the grass. Or maybe I just feel like, oh, my body's so heavy, or I just feel like my back is aching. Is there something you can do about changing your chair? Really get practical about what it is that you are finding, because sometimes what we do is we link the organizational change to other things that might be happening to us. Now, I'm not invalidating what you're feeling around the organizational change, but I'm saying let's think very practically as well. What are the different ways we can support ourselves so that we approach the change in a more enlightened way? Because if we have been drained and frustrated by things in another part of our lives, we will carry those over into our organizational change. We will be less excited to approach new challenges. We will be less keen to support other individuals because of how we are feeling. So is it a bubble bath? What do you enjoy? Is it just getting a massage from a local spa? What is it that you can do so that by the time you get to the team, by the time you interact with the team, you have filled your cup? I love the term fill your cup so you can pour out into others. And as a change lead, as a leader of a team that is going through a very tough organizational transformation, really think about how can I fill my cup? What are the things that really help me? And then create the boundaries around that. And this is one of the things we talk to leaders about quite consistently, is how do you build the boundaries, but also how does the entire organization allow for those boundaries to be kept? Because it's one thing, right, to have your beautiful boundaries and say, no, on a Saturday, don't text me on WhatsApp. I don't do it. But if your company has not made room for that to happen, everyone will text you. You can have that boundary, but you will look at your phone because your company doesn't have the infrastructure to hold those boundaries as sacrosanct or as sacred to you. So that's a really important thing to think about, is what fills your cup. And then as a result, how do I then fill the cups of others? And it might be worth having a conversation then with your team to say, how can I fill your cups? I understand that during this transformation, we all feel very drained. We all feel very taken aback. It's exhausting. It's draining, because it's draining for them too, not just for yourself. And then go, okay, I would love to fill your cups, but here's what I need to have my cup filled, so that they understand the analogy that unless your cup has been filled, you are not in a position to then fill theirs. So how do they support you and you support them? You want to really make it clear that there's a mutual beneficiality going on there, that they support you and you support them. You are not the all giving, all knowing. You are there to support them and they are there to support you. There's a beautiful mutuality going on there. Okay, so we have really extended our time today, but it's just been so beautiful to have the conversation around how you as a leader can support yourself. And I hope that there are some practical, I'm going to leave this podcast and do them right now types of things that you've gotten from this conversation, because that is really what we aim to do. I have a background in primary school teaching, and when we started the Unlearners, one of the things we really wanted to do is think about practicality, things that make sense, things that are very easily implementable, but also are just clear and easy to understand. I think oftentimes we complicate some of these contexts and some of these conversations around transformation, but transformation doesn't have to be complex, because it's humans that are changing, and organizations are made up of human beings with brains that learn and that change. And so we come in with that beautiful understanding. Once again, very quickly before I say goodbye, just a reminder about those 3 amazing resources that are available to you that you can take advantage of right now as you jump off of this call. Go over into the show notes and click on the link that will give you access to those amazing resources. The first one is our 5-question quiz that is called How to Lead Change Now. Will give you the very next step of what you can do right now with where your team is. How does your team need support right now? And then the next one is your 2 steps to change cheat sheet that you can download that will help you build a sense of psychological safety. This one is great if you're feeling like, oh, everyone is resisting the change. I don't know what to do. They're going to stone me. Okay, that's a joke. But anything of that such, you are feeling a bit of hostility, then this is a really great one to play around with. And in the very last one, if you feel like you could use a higher level of support, then please do fill out an application for our Navigating Transitions Mastermind. It would be amazing to have you there, because I'm sure you are a master in your context, and your beautiful value and lessons would be highly valuable to other leaders who will then also share theirs. And I facilitate the entire conversation and that group. So it will be amazing to have you as part of that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Unlearners podcast. It's been myself, Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady, wishing you all of the best in building transformational change in your organization, but also in your life and in our world, especially at a time when we need it so desperately. Bye for now. The Unlearners. Learn, change, learn, change. The Unlearners. I think if you take one courageous step at a time, it's going to be such the Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.